Welcome back to Autism Live. We have joining us via Skype and telephone Bonnie Yates, special education attorney extraordinaire and recent birthday girl. We were just wishing her a happy birthday and want to make sure we do it on the air because Bonnie's birthday was yesterday and Bonnie's very special to us. So happy birthday, Bonnie.
Thank you. It was a very happy birthday. I think I've decided that the closer one gets to kind of the end of the life trajectory, the more you appreciate what an amazing gift it is, you know.
Yeah, it is an amazing thing. And I love that it seems like the older we get, the more that people celebrate you. So we want to celebrate you today. Happy birthday.
Well, I was really well feted yesterday, and I was so busy that I haven't even responded to all the lovely communication, but it's going to happen.
Fabulous.
My goal is today.
Oh, I love it. And Bonnie is coming to us via the law firm of Hirji and Chow, which we absolutely adore and appreciate them for giving this time with Bonnie. She's a special education attorney, and she donates this time to answer questions that you guys have sent in. So Bonnie, tell us a little bit about Hirji and Chow, and then give us the disclaimer.
Okay, so I'm gonna say first that I donate this time because the questions you guys ask, A, make me a better lawyer, and B, teach me about stuff that I'm supposed to know and I don't. And today's a good example. So Hirji and Chow is a special education disability discrimination law firm in Southern California. We represent kids, you know, from birth basically until death if they have regional center services. We just did a regional center hearing for a 54-year-old man trying to get him eligibility after several rounds of not being successful on his own. We do all disabilities, we do all ages, we do, you know, all education-related problems. If we can't help you, we can often find somebody who can help you. So if you want to, you know, talk to us, give us a call. The phone number is 310-391-0330.
And the website is Lawyer for Children, the number 4. So you can check out their great website. It's a wonderful resource. And then the disclaimer, Miss Bonnie.
Oh, the disclaimer. Thank you. The disclaimer is we're answering questions of general interest in a general way under California and federal law. For your specific question about your specific problem, if you really, you know, think you need to take legal action, consult an attorney in your own state. And there are really good attorneys at www.copaa.net. Those are members of the California what is it called? The California Association of Parent Attorneys and Advocates, and those are people that are very active in moving the law forward in the disability special ed community.
Fabulous. And so I'm going to jump in with questions then, because we have a lot of questions to cover. Let's see how much we can
Okay.
Okay, so
can I add one more disclaimer?
Yes, absolutely.
I need to say the strange art on the walls in this room is entirely the responsibility of my husband, and I don't take any responsibility for any of it.
All right.
So.
All right. Well, I love that every time you're on with us, Bonnie, sometimes you're at the law firm and sometimes you are at home, but when you're at home, it's from a different room, I swear, every time. I think you've done this with us probably 40 or 50 times, and I swear it's from a different angle in a different room. I don't think you've duplicated twice.
No, it'll turn out that I just have these backdrops, like fake backdrops.
And they're
right?
and it's always fun art. It's always like very interesting, eclectic art. So no matter where you are, I think it speaks volumes.
Well,
okay.
The apple doesn't fall very far from the tree in this family, is all I could say about that. Anyway.
I love that. Okay, so I'm going to jump into this first question here.
Right.
Somebody wrote in and said, we are losing our home to foreclosure. And now the school district is telling us if we move to the apartment we're looking at, it is out of district and we will have to send our child to another school, get another one-on-one aid, and start our fight all over again. I just have that much, and they write, I just don't have that much fight left in me. The line for the district zoning literally is across the street. I have looked and can't find anything we can afford in the district. Can't they make an exception? So Miss Bonnie, what you think?
Well, it doesn't matter what I think. What matters is that the federal government thinks that there's a big exception in the form of a program it created called the McKinney-Vento Act. And, I thought until this question was asked that it was strictly limited to California, and I knew that it protected children and families who became homeless, but I didn't know much more than that. So this is a great example of Autism Live teaching me. So we're going to talk about the problem of homelessness and related problems. So you can see that one of the things that the problem of homelessness touches on is the question of residency. We could probably do a show soon and talk about residency, since it's a more complicated issue than people perhaps think. Normally, your ability to be in a district is determined by your residing within the district's geographical boundaries. So McKinney-Vento sets up an exception to the rule that if you're not a resident of the district, you can't go to school there. Now, there are exceptions to this. We know there are like schools of choice, and there are, charter schools, and we're not talking about, we're talking about under the normal circumstances with a normal public school, what your rights are. I also wanted to mention, and I never have on this show, and there's other ways to get permission to go to a school that's not your neighborhood school or a district school. There's the work permit, which is a confusing area decided in some measure by state law and then also by board policy in the particular district. There's also something called a caregiver affidavit, where you essentially, without having to go to court or anything, you give another family member or a trusted friend who lives in a district where your child potentially could go to school, you give them some educational rights and responsibility for them, and that gives you permission to enroll them in that district. Now, that's a really well-kept secret, and something else that we could talk about in another context. But I think the first time I heard McKinney-Vento mentioned, it was, of course, Rosa Hirschi, who is kind of like this, the fount of all kinds of really, important information. So, we had a client. She was a housekeeper. She took her children and enrolled them in the school where she worked at the home. In other words, let's say the family's home was in the Los Angeles Unified School District, although it wasn't, and she was living outside a district. Because of her status in that household, 40 hours a week or something, her children were allowed to go to the neighborhood school right near the house. So what happened was, I think the employer moved, or the job ceased to exist, and all of a sudden she's got two kids, one of whom is in special ed and one of whom is in regular ed. And there was a nasty little thing that went down where the district agreed to give the regular ed kiddo a permit, but not the special ed kid a permit. And so McKinney-Vento would apply there just as it would apply for your listener, Shannon, who's losing her house due to foreclosure. The federal government decided that the issue of homelessness was really important and bore upon lots of other issues for students. And so they crafted something that I think is a pretty far-reaching piece of really positive legislation, and here's how it works. Okay? So first of all, what does it mean? Are you homeless if you're losing your house to foreclosure? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. The definition of homeless that McKinney-Vento employs is very broad. It means you have no fixed, regular, or adequate nighttime residence. You're living with a friend or relative because you lost your home, or your family's having temporary financial problems. So maybe you haven't been evicted, but maybe you're moving out before you get evicted so it doesn't wreck your next, attempt to move in somewhere. Or you're staying in a motel, a campground, or a trailer park because you have nowhere to go. Or you're living in a shelter, or you're living in subsidized housing, or you're living in places not usually used for sleeping, or you are awaiting foster care placement, or your parents have abandoned you, or they're in the hospital and can't help you. So that's going to be pretty much all students, all families, I think, can fit into the McKinney-Vento framework. And if you are what they call an unaccompanied youth, you are entitled to specific supports that are available through McKinney-Vento. So if you are asked to leave your home, if you're a runaway, if your parents are, I think I've said this already, but in jail, hospital, or in rehab, you're an unaccompanied youth, and they have to give you basically a school liaison person at school that will help you with housing and your educational needs. So you can't be kept out of school just because there's no responsible adult to enroll you. This facilitator, school-based facilitator, has to help you do all that. Now, apparently, lots of people used McKinney-Vento during Hurricane Katrina. You could see how that would fit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can't deny somebody the ability to access McKinney-Vento if they don't have documentation showing that they're legal residents of the United States. So the way it works is the federal government has directed the states to set up a statewide and a district-wide liaison program. So each school has a coordinator for homelessness, and they have a duty to post stuff in public places and locate and enroll students who are homeless and make sure that they have an equal opportunities to succeed. So, as I was reading this, it's anticipating some of the problems that you have in special ed in terms of the standard, in terms of kind of stay put, things like that. So this liaison has a lot of responsibility. They have to make sure that the student receives appropriate services, including transportation and special education, or preschool, or English language, ESL support, or voc ed support, which would be, like community-based instruction for an older student. They have to make medical referrals where appropriate, and they have to assist with enrollment and transportation. And if there are disagreements with the school, they are expected to assist in arriving at a speedy resolution. And while that dispute is pending, the student remains in the public school. They're also required to help get records, and they are supervised by a state superintendent or supervisor who takes complaints and takes data and liaisons with all the individual schools. So the policy reasons for having McKinney-Vento are that it has been shown that you do better as a student if you remain in your school for continuity purposes than if you move around a lot. Your school of origin is deemed to be the last place you were enrolled in. And you have, once you do invoke McKinney-Vento, it stays in place until you become permanently housed, and then from that point you have 1 year. So that's kind of the important information that the listeners have probably been waiting for. It gives you, essentially all the time you need to reasonably relocate plus a year. So that gives you a bunch of time in which to figure out what you need to do.
So I have a stupid question, Bonnie.
Yeah.
So for this, the way I read this question, they're about to move, that the house is being foreclosed on, and that they have identified an apartment that is across the street from the district. So do they need to file something with the school district that says McKinney-Vento now before they sign the lease on the new apartment? Because once they sign the lease on the new apartment, doesn't that in effect make them not homeless?
Well, but then they'd have a year.
But is the year only after they have claimed McKinney-Vento, or no? Everybody gets
Well,
McKinney.
I think they should let the district know right now that they're homeless.
Okay.
And that they're looking for a place to live, and that they've identified a place to live, but they don't know if they're going to get it. I mean, in California, you don't know that you're going to get a rental. And also, they could say this is temporary housing. We don't know how long we're going to be here. We don't know how long we're going to be able to afford this.
Absolutely.
And I mean, a year is a long time, but if they can't afford anything in the district, then they don't think they're going to be in the future. I mean, I guess they could take advantage of that year, and then if they can't afford the rent anymore where they're living, I don't think you have to really prove that, then maybe be eligible for another year, because maybe you become homeless again.
So maybe this is the question that I needed to ask, which is that all you have to do is evoke McKinney-Vento, or do you have to fill out papers, or is it just a thing where you go, no, I'm claiming McKinney-Vento?
Well, it's probably probably district by district, but the states can't make laws in this respect that are more narrow than the feds. So I don't think they require much. I mean, that's a good question. I don't actually know the answer to it. It might be by individual board policy, but I think for these people, they should say,
we're homeless.
I need more facts. Like, do you think you're going to be able to permanently occupy this apartment, or is it bad, and what are the reasons, and is the school district where they're moving a bad school district? I mean, another exception to the general rule is if you're coming from New York to California, you're obviously not going to be able to stay in your New York school for a year. They're going to have to figure something out to help you.
Okay.
So here's some information for you. I forgot to write this down. They have to get you set up and provide transportation, and they must immediately enroll you if you're homeless, notwithstanding that you have no medical records, no academic records, no proof of residency, no obvious parent or legal guardian with you to enroll you, and no birth certificate. So I had this kind of thing going on with a poor woman. I mean, economically, she was disadvantaged.
Uh-huh.
And I saw, because her son was a difficult teenager. He was doing some back and forth stuff between school districts. I ended up in a situation where the special ed director was actually leaving at the end of the year, and I think he was kind of being kind to me. So when the issue came up during like a resolution session or mediation, he says, well, they haven't been living in the district. They've been living in the adjoining district. I said, yeah, they're homeless. And he dropped it.
Wow.
So anyway, the federal rule can't be trumped by state rules. You have to, receive the same services as a non-homeless student. And the districts that have policies that are barriers to education under these circumstances, they have to change their policies. So there's also apparently certain charter schools that are homeless-only charter schools, or certain classrooms in homeless shelters. Those are mostly against the law. They have to give equal access to programs and services, and that includes, by the way, breakfast and lunch without paperwork.
Wow.
If you're hungry, you get breakfast and lunch. If you're homeless, we already talked about access to preschool and special education. There's also Title I money available if you need additional counseling. And then FERPA protects your privacy, so the district cannot talk to other people about the fact that you're homeless.
Nice.
That's private.
Nice.
Okay, they can't reveal it to third parties. So let's say you have a dispute with the school district about homelessness status, and you can't work it out. There's an appeal process, and you basically appeal, and the district has to explain to you why they're rejecting your application, and they have to enroll you in the desired school and give you all the necessary services during the time that they are working this out, and it then would be referred to the liaison to quickly resolve it. And there's even some information in the goodie that I sent you about how to contact the state coordinator and lawyers that are potentially available for free legal services with respect to homelessness. So the U.S. Department of Ed's phone number, if you had such questions, is 202-260-4412, 202-260-4412. Shannon will post the goodie.
It should already be up on Facebook right now. If people go to our
so I
Facebook.
think we basically beat the heck out of that question.
That's amazing, though. Bonnie, that's super good information. That's going to help a whole lot of people.
Good.
So fabulous. Now our Facebook has we've got the wrong lower third up there for a second, Gabriel. Our Facebook will have the goodie that Bonnie was referring to on our Facebook. Okay, moving on to the next question. We are hearing that schools in different states are funding one-to-one aids with Medicaid reimbursement and insurance to some extent. Are you seeing this too? Are they doing it in California, and how does it work?
That is something that I think my response to that was to say, in a few cases, I'm seeing school districts allow insurance-funded ABA into the classroom. Very, very few. I haven't heard anything about school districts using the EPSDT money. But it would be a good thing if that was starting to happen.
Okay.
If that's something people want to know more about, I can look into it for next week.
Our next question, what are parents' rights regarding substitutes? My daughter, my daughter is in a special day class and her teacher has been absent a lot this year. It's always someone different. I never know. Sometimes they come in at the half day. It doesn't seem like any of them have any training. They don't know my daughter's IEP or how to implement her BIP. She had a meltdown the other day because a sub didn't follow the BIP and it escalated. I fear that eventually it will be a safety issue. Don't we have any right to know? If I knew when there was a sub, I would just keep her home.
Okay. Well, there's no right. There are laws concerning how many days a year a district can have a long-term sub for. I didn't look those up. It might be a couple of months. And there's no rule against having substitute teachers, successive ones, during a particular school year. And I'm really sorry to say that in a place like Compton, where there's so much dysfunction and the teachers are really in bad straits there, that you have substitute after substitute after substitute. Yeah. But here's the way that you address it. At a certain point, it becomes a denial of faith. Yeah. Because those substitute teachers are not going to meaningfully affect or implement the IEP, and that's going to cause regression or no progress. And that's how you get to the issue. It's a due process issue. It's a failure to offer faith and failure to implement the IEP.
Interesting. I would never have thought of it that way, but of course that's what that is. All right. Well, we're almost out of time. Do you want to tackle the next question or save it for 2 weeks from now?
What does it say?
It is about the school offerings. My son's school is offering him OT services 2 times a week, where he goes to the OT classroom. It's the one about there's testing happening.
It's the same question. Is the district allowed to schedule your related services in a way that makes you tank in another class? And the answer to that is no. Again, it's a denial of faith.
Okay, so let me finish the question so our viewers know what we're talking about. So the parent goes on to say, we just went to our parent conference and the teacher said my son is failing math. She was showing me his scores and he has a bunch of zeros on quizzes, and I asked her what she thought the problem was, and she said he's missing the lessons because he's at the OT. The OT apparently changed her schedule and comes and gets him during math. I asked her if the OT could change her schedule. Nope, sorry, can't do it. So I asked the teacher to change when she teaches math. Sorry, no can do. I just want to scream, and is this legal? So this is a denial of faith, you were saying.
Well, it could certainly be looked at in that way. There are very, very heavy caseloads that the related service providers are dealing with, right? I mean, they have, 50, 60, 70 kids that they're supposed to serve every week, and they're just in overwhelm mode. And so they're trying to manage a schedule. There aren't a lot of slots. Probably their union contract doesn't allow them to do after-school stuff. Maybe there's a zero period. So you get a lot of people coming in and saying, I can't do, 2 sessions a week because I'm only there 1 day a week or whatever. I mean, the IEP has to ensure that you're going to make progress in all areas and in all areas of unique need, but, also like, if your related service is causing you to do poorly in math, then I think that, the argument is that's a denial of faith and they're going to have to find another time to schedule it. Or if they can't do it, they always have the option of agreeing to pay for outside NPA after school services. That's not unheard of. Okay. They don't like to do it, but that would be another solution. But they can't make you fail math in order to get your OT.
It's ridiculous, right?
It is ridiculous.
You're amazing, and we always appreciate you, and especially in your birthday month. We so appreciate you being here. We are not here next week because it's Thanksgiving.
Yes.
So we're all going to celebrate and eat turkey and get sleepy. But we'll be back the week after. Before I let you go, though, 2 things. How do you spell McKinney-Vento so we make sure that we tag this properly? Is it
McKinney, McKinney-VENTO.
VENTO. Okay, fabulous. And then tell us again about Here Ji and Chow before you go.
Well, Here Ji and Chow is, we are busy trying to deal with the fact that there seem to be more and more cases all the time.
Yeah.
And that's really concerning. But anyway, we're always happy to talk, and we try to accommodate parents if they need an intake. That's something that we, if our schedule permits, we offer a complimentary intake. We'd love to hear from you. The phone number is 310-391-0330. And this would be for people in Southern California. We can't really intake people that are out of state and so on. California, yes. The 50 states, no. The 49 other states, no. But the 49 other states, take a look at COPA. That's a good place to start.
Thank you so much, Bonnie, for everything
My pleasure.
you do. We celebrate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shannon.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Appreciate it. Okay.
All right, bye-bye. All right, we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, it's time. I get to play with this on air. Linda Tsai is going to be joining us to talk about the Touring Tumble. Stick around.